Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the live Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly though, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on social media. Shout out to Colin Turner for hitting the super chat during the intro. Massive thanks to you. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now we are joined by Sleeping Warrior and Paul. Good to have you both.
Hello, sir.
Woohoo!
Oh. Nathan, let's dispense with housekeeping for one show. Let's have the conversation that is the hot potato. What happened on Globebusters last night then?
No, but you've got a lot of background hiss. What's that all about?
It's not me, it's Paul.
Oh, is it Paul?
Sorry. I'm actually driving, so let me mute, and I'll come back in when I need to talk.
Yeah, it sounds like I don't mind dispensing with housekeeping. If you want to talk about Globebusters, that's fine by me.
Well, I think it's the only thing that people are going to want to talk about today. So what we'll do, we all know what happened. I'll do the fact bit. Joined Globebusters. There was a bit of a back and forth. Rage quit, and then responses. I'll play the journalist. So Nathan, what happened on Globebusters last night?
Well, first of all, I didn't rage quit. I was invited to leave. Hello, Flat Earth. Good to have you.
Hello. Hi.
Hello. Nice to see you. So no, I didn't rage quit. I was getting annoyed, and I was glad of the opportunity. Don't get me wrong. But by the same token, when someone says, look, if you're going to talk over me on this show, then you might as well leave, or words to that effect, at that point, I'm going to say, okay, fine. I'm trying to help here. So if that's the way it is, then fine. I'm obviously wasting my breath.
So it wasn't a rage quit. Okay, so what was the... All right. Why did you take advantage of the opportunity?
Say that again. I know what you've done. The gate you've got too high. The second wheel on your desk is too high, so it's cutting you off.
I've turned it down.
There we go.
Turned it down.
Hello.
So the question is,
saying,
if it wasn't a rage quit...
Just one sec. Hey, Chocolate. Hey, guys.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey.
Hey, Chocolate.
That was a good impression.
Right, I'll do my best. I didn't think you'd come off mute, but you did.
All right. So if it wasn't a rage quit, what was it? Why did you leave? What was the issue? Because everybody wants to know what actually happened. Why did you leave?
Because I'd given a fairly concise and consistent explanation for the issue at hand, and it was promptly ignored. So that's why. Shout out to Brandon for the super chat. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate your support. So if you explain something in great detail and then someone promptly ignores it and says, no, we're not going to call an experiment an experiment when it says the word experiment on screen. And, you know, after I'd gone, the video that they played, which I know well, goes on to detail how the experiment works. And if it's not an experiment... And my point is that that word has become a magic word. Hey, Spurs, how you doing?
Hey, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. Very well, very well. I was just talking about magic words, saying that if you're trained at school to understand that science means proof of something, and you assert scientific terminology such as experiment, that will automatically have the magic effect that is desired when you invoke this language, which is to say that you understand from a child that it means you've proven something. So if you can then twist what is actually proof, the scientific method, empirical, to mean what you say, i.e. an assertion based on a gadget or an observation of a light in the sky or anything else for that matter, then a useful magic word is experiment or science or hypothesis or any of these other words. So if you've just explained that to somebody and they ultimately go, right, let's listen to what the words of this man are about a pseudoscience non-experiment that doesn't adhere to the scientific method. Let's go! And I go, no, but this doesn't prove anything. And then you get told off. That's good enough cause to leave. And I did. There you go. There's your answer, Anthony.
Yeah, it's like the white coat. People seem to think if you wear a jacket or white overall, you know what you're talking about. So yeah, the same thing with the experiment. People have hijacked the meaning of what it means. And I don't know, are you talking about yesterday's show or just in general?
Yeah, we're just chit-chatting, Spurs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're definitely talking about yesterday's show.
You don't want to talk?
No, we are. That is
Oh,
definitely...
you are?
I'm just kidding with you.
Well, okay. You've been through the housekeeping and things like that. I'm not interrupting anything like that.
No, we're not. We've dispensed with housekeeping because specifically people are going to want to know why, quote, according to Anthony, I rage quit. Well, I didn't. That was the first thing I pointed out. And then when I was asked why I've left, it's because everything I said was essentially ignored. You know. But there we go.
Did you leave or did they kick you out?
Oh, I definitely left. I mean, I'll be ruthlessly honest with you. For a few minutes, I'd been hovering over the I'm going to leave button, but did not want to rage quit, as you put it. So when I was given the opportunity to leave, I took it. Well, that's not me rage quitting, and I won't lie, I was looking for that opportunity to leave. So that's as ruthlessly honest as I can be. Now, you can spin that into he rage quit, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out
no,
to Miguel,
I don't think it was rage.
Chat.
I think you made your point anyway, and it would have, you know, if it's just seen as like a point, okay, thank you, Nathan, that's your point, then, you know, there's nothing to discuss. But if it's, I don't think, I can't remember the other guy's name, but they didn't want to explore, you know, what
the other guy was Mike.
Mike, yeah. So instead of exploring, because we're in this together, right?
I've got a troll already. Hold on. Has anybody got the back chat?
I don't have it. Can you get rid of him, Nathan?
Then that's bad news.
Yeah, this might get sniped. I didn't have it open.
All right, I got rid of him. Your reply that you just gave, Nathan, makes it seem like you did rage quit, but it was specifically that Bob was trying to obfuscate the point by playing the Sagniak video, and you were trying to skip over that whole thing because then they would have just gone with the Sagniak effect as if it's some kind of test. And that's the thing. And then...
Hold on a second. Hi, Darth Studios. Oh, no, it's just a
That was
troll.
the same person.
Sorry, Flatner.
All right. So yeah, so they were trying to obfuscate the point, and by playing this video and maybe trying to prove that it somehow proves the ether, but that's not the point you were trying to make. And then so you were trying to cut off him playing the video, and then he said, well, if you're just going to cut me off, then maybe it is time for you to go, and that's when you left. So he actually told you to go because you were blocking the video, and he took that as a personal offense.
No, how I saw it was wires crossed. So when Nathan was saying to Bob, you said this, what's his name, Mike was saying, no, I didn't say that. And Nathan, I think he was talking to Bob at the time, trying to get Bob to address a point. But then Mike was saying, oh, I didn't say that. That wasn't me. I never said this. And I was listening thinking, well, yeah, he didn't say you. He's saying that Bob was saying that this is an experiment. And he just wanted to explore that. So again, that's what I think it was. You, Nathan, wanted to explore what he means by saying it's an experiment, because you've just explained it's not an experiment. And then it just went all over the place when the guy was like, well, I didn't say that. You're putting words in my mouth. He wasn't even talking to him, I thought.
Right after that, though, right after Bob conceded that it wasn't an experiment, then he went off to say that this Michael Bowden says that, you know, the Sagnac was an experiment and that he proved the ether right after that.
Yeah, so I just
it's
think
like-
Nathan just brought back up and saying that it's not an experiment, and maybe Bob just a slip of the tongue because, like, you know, when you're in the mode or whatever. So I think that then when it fell apart was when Mike was like, "You're putting words in my mouth," but he wasn't exactly talking to Mike per se. I don't think. Yeah, I have another reason as why it went the way it did, and I think Nathan had to say this now without sounding like I think you embarrassed the situation there because you had an understanding of what science is, how it works, how it goes, and you know because you were like, oh, I'm not trying to treat you like a ball earther, Bob, but this is what the method is. This is the steps that you should follow, or we should follow. And I think it kind of, you know, Bob was like, well, you know, I don't know. It felt to me like he was a little bit embarrassed that he didn't know the scientific method completely like that, and was just trying to say, look, well, technology is science. You know, all the computers are science.
Yeah,
and we were trying to say not quite. So I get it. I think that's where it kind of fell down when. But it's not your fault.
Point that was missed.
You're doing this every
So,
single day. You know. Sorry.
Hey, Kosho, how you doing? Can you hear
No.
us? Shout out to, is it Jeremiah Harris? I can't quite read it. I'm sorry, the glare of the screen. I'm going to bring it up on my iPad so I can read your names. Hey, Kosho.
Well, the question was, why did Nathan rage quit? And he didn't.
Oh, sorry, bear with me. Hey, Kosho, can you hear us?
Hey, Cosine.
Kosho.
Kosho said hi. He was quiet.
He did,
He
say,
did say
hi.
hi.
Okay, hey, Zinda, can you hear us? And shout out to JS for the super chat. Thank you very much.
I can hear her now. Right.
Good. Sorry,
You can hear me.
do you want to carry on, my friend?
Yeah. I mean, you do it to everybody. You embarrass the best of them. And the ball earthers, they come on here, they profess to be wise, knowledge. We break down the scientific method. And by the end of it, they understand, yeah, this is actually the right way. So I think, you know, with the Bob show, it kind of felt a little bit like that. Not to me, not to, you know, people who understand this method, but I think he probably thought, well, this is not, you know, the show. So don't. But again, what can we do? This is the method. We have to stick to it. We can't deviate. Otherwise, it's pseudoscience. In my mind, that's what I was thinking. Is like, what is Nathan saying wrong? You have an order.
You're right.
Yeah, I was just trying to think.
Right.
Yeah.
And the point, I don't even want to cut you off, but the point that they missed was that Nathan was saying that we're in this situation because we've taken whatever these white coats and these so-called scientists want to pass off to us, you know, which are really observations or tests or whatever, and they pass it off to us as experiments. And we just fall for it. We just take it, oh yeah, this is what it is. We're told it's fact, and we fall for it. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in. And we're trying to avoid that on our own. And I mean, look, Bob is the one who's being toted around right now as the guy who proved rotation off of an experiment off of a gyro. You know, and Nathan's trying to like show that that's not possible. And it's like they couldn't understand that. And I got love for Globe Busters and all that, but I mean, yeah, there were wires crossed. That definitely happened.
The point I'd like to make is that when Bob brought up the voltmeter, Nathan was saying, like, prior to him making the point about the voltmeter, Nathan was trying to say that this is basically technology, and technology is not science. It might be part of the process of applying a method, but it's not actually science to have like technology as your citation. And Bob said, well, what about a voltmeter? A voltmeter is a measuring the current, and that's an example of technology. It's not an example where there is the identification of a cause in a cause and effect relationship. And when Bob brought that up, that's where I realized that Bob didn't get that point. Because although it's true to say that you're measuring part of the current of the energy, the flow of electricity, what you're not doing is you're not proving anything about where it's what's causing that. You're just measuring it. So to measure something, be it a tape measure for height or I don't know, a speedometer for speed, in this case, a gyroscope for momentum or whatever. That's not proving a cause in a scientific experiment. And that's the bit that Bob didn't get, because he wanted the voltmeter to be like science. And it's part of the discussion. It's part of the technique or whatever, but it's not proving any cause.
I think the part that got to Bob, again, I could be wrong. I'm not attacking anything. I'm just looking at it from the outside. And I think the part that got to him is when you question him, Nathan, on the cause of what is turning. Because you do this a lot. You make people think about what they're, this is what we like to do. We like to make people think about what they're actually saying. And you were like, okay, so the stars are turning or something is turning. What is the cause? How do we test that? And then they have to think, well, how would I test that? Right? So yeah, I think that's where like the confusion, or it just felt like, you were, no, it didn't actually. It didn't feel like you were treating like a board. It's like trying not to, just how to have a conversation and tell like a friend, look, this is.
But Spurs, you're exactly right though, because that's what I heard in the conversation. I heard the arguments that we have against the Cavendish experiment, how what we're seeing, the phenomenon that we're seeing is in the apparatus. That you had to create the apparatus to see the phenomenon that we're. Yeah. I mean, come on.
Yeah. No. That's what we're trying to show people. But I think people don't get that. Literally, it's like a light's being turned on as we are speaking, like as we are explaining this, walking people through it. And then they kind of, because you heard Nathan say as well, he had a PhD or someone on there, John, where at the end he conceded, okay, this is the method, the correct way to know something. So again, I think people have to walk through this. And I don't think on Globebusters there was enough time to do like, it was not enough time for Nathan to explain again. Because on here, we've got a lot of time. He'll go over it again and again, and he'll say, right, I'll repeat it again. And people do actually need that. People need to hear it again and again, so it sinks in. And, I think in that case, there wasn't enough time, obviously, to explain the full method. But I don't think he did anything wrong. I think Bob will come around and understand that we have to follow a particular order. Otherwise, it's pseudoscience.
But that's not strictly accurate. So nobody has to follow any method. However, if you're to assert that you are performing, for example, an experiment, then that's scientific terminology. So as soon as you use that word, well, what is an experiment? Well, it's a hypothesis test. So I'm not asserting that anybody has to do anything or follow any method. The problem
hold on, Nathan, hold on. To know something about the natural and physical world, we don't have to follow a method.
No, the scientific method is an empirical way of establishing the cause of an effect. That's what it does. Right. However, that doesn't mean you have to apply it, and in many instances it is not applicable. If you have a what is question, you're not trying to detail cause and effect. So that sits outside of science. Well, that's a huge amount of questions that can, remain unanswered because you can't put them through the method? Well, no. There are other means of establishing what you want to assert with logic and reason. But that doesn't necessarily mean that your logic and reason can be undone very easily with something else. So what's the solution to that problem? Well, if you can assert that your logical reason and deduction based on discounting of probable outcomes is actually empirical, well, then that would be very useful. Well, how do you do that? Well, I'll tell you. You say the word science when you use logic and reason and deduction and reduction of the correlations that you have and their likelihood of being the cause of an effect. Well, that isn't science. But if you say it's science, then you are a pseudoscientist. If you say it's an experiment and you've not adhered to that method, i.e. a hypothesis test, which is what an experiment is, then you're a pseudoscientist. Now, if you try and rephrase an experiment, and it's on screen, deemed an experiment, Sagnac experiment, Cavendish experiment, and you just say, well, no, this is just an observation, and then you say, but we've manipulated variables, well, what is the point of manipulating variables for making an observation? You can just look at things. Just look at them. Why do I need to manipulate variables? That would be something that you do in the scientific method. So if you're going to say that, well, it's just an observation, well, what the fuck are you doing varying things then?
So the phenomena question is a what question? I mean, what kind of question?
A cause and effect relationship.
No, you're saying it's a why or a how or what.
Yeah.
Is it a what? You know, you were saying science answers this. So phenomena is what is
Cause
what?
and effect. The effect being the
How?
phenomena you observe. So
it's
when
what?
Bob said,
Why?
I can observe the star rotations. Okay, here you go.
Yeah.
Wicked. Phenomena. Okay, well, so we've potentially got a scientific inquiry. We can establish with that method the cause of that effect. And how do you do that? Well, you presume what is causing that effect, and then you vary that presumed cause and see if it causes the effect. That's all science does.
Yeah. Very simple, really, actually, yeah. So I think people actually, they don't see how simple it is. They think science is more complex than it has to be, right? So obviously people with the white coats and their credentials, they can obviously tell these people anything simply because of this. So for me, it's a very simple process. If you want to know something, you would follow a procedure in the natural world, science, phenomena that you don't understand.
Hold on one second. Hold on one
Like
second.
you say,
Hold
look
on,
for
hold
the
on, hold on,
cause
hold
of
on,
that
hold on,
said
hold on,
effect.
hold on. UK Truth, how you doing? Hear us?
Cameras on.
Can you say hello, my friend? Give him a moment. Spurs. Hello, UK Truth. We need to say. Okay.
Oh, he's gone.
No worries. Carry on, Chemo. My bad.
Yeah. No. Well, you see. Okay. So yeah. Yes. You are right, but people want to know kind of why you are right. They have method. So this method that you're talking about, different ways. I think that's what people are trying to find out when they know something, and which method to use. How do we know things? Yeah. So I think that's what the confusion lies in. How do we know how computers work? Is it science? How do we know how technology works? Is it because of science? And I think that's where the problem probably was, is how do we know what we know? Because he was saying you could just throw out everything if you want to throw out science or something like this.
Yeah, that's not what I'm trying to illustrate. What I'm trying to illustrate is that when you invoke science with words like experiment, then you are expected to have adhered to science. That's it. And if you haven't, but you go like Bob did, well, I don't know about the cause and effect IVDV bit, but this experiment, well, so you use the magic word that says proof, and then tell me that you don't understand how the IVDV bit works. Well, the experiment is the last bit, the end. We don't start with an experiment and then say, what's causing this? No, that's not how it works. You start by observing something happening, a phenomena, and go, what's causing this to happen? Let's see if we can establish what's the cause. And then you vary and manipulate a presumed cause with a null hypothesis attached, a zero difference result. In other words, when you perform the experiment, you have two sides, one that says you've got it right. You presumed the correct cause, and it did cause the effect. Proof, positive, empirical.
I think people would like to see an example.
Or, my bad, I'm just explaining something complicated, Spurs, so yeah, just jump in, mate. Or a null hypothesis. Something that they claim is proof also. Null being zero difference. So when they have these experiments that come out with null results, zero difference, they claim science. No. If you get a null result, you incorrectly identified the cause of the effect. So not a validated hypothesis, but a zero difference, null result. Yet they get posted up as the child of science also, don't they? Here we are with our null result that proves this, my assertion. No. All you're trying to do is prove the cause of an effect. That's it.
One of the things.
Understand that concept. I was going to say, if because I was asked earlier on, do we have anything where we've actually followed this method and
Of
applied?
course.
Have we? Anthony, is there
on?
anything you can think of where method is applied, or Doctor, or Arwin. You know,
Well, I'd like to address the situation because, yeah, Nathan makes a very good point. But isn't there any other way the word experiment can be interpreted outside of the scientific
Not about
method? Because I'm
interpreting the
looking it up,
word.
the
What do you mean
etymology.
interpreting? It's
If
not.
I can
It's not
continue my
open
question,
to interpretation.
please, Nathan. If I can
It's-
please continue my
No,
question.
because you're saying, is
No?
there any other way we can interpret?
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's no
So if
other
I
way.
look the word up experiment through etymology, what I get to see is it basically derived from Old French, meaning try.
That's fascinating. It's a hypothesis test. That's what we are doing when we perform an experiment. And a hypothesis test is a scientific prediction. If you want to, you can interpret that word to mean what you say. That's what's happened.
But only if you're gonna do it in the context of scientific method.
Exactly, Arwin.
Right, so why couldn't you use the word experiment just in general, just to test
I'm
something
not.
out and try it out?
I'm not. Am I?
Well, no.
Well, why
But
are you
Bob
asking
is, I
me?
think.
Ask Bob. Why are you using these words, Bob, when you haven't got the vaguest notion what they mean, Bob? Why is it that when you tell me you've done an experiment, a hypothesis test, and that science has proved the ether, why is it you can't tell me what an IV-DV relationship is? Why is it that you're trying to vary the bloody hypothesis live on air if you've already done an experiment? Why, Bob? Why? Why am I getting asked about what is needed to be done to produce an experiment when you've already claimed you've got one? Why is this not a hypothesis test if you're to claim that science proves the bloody ether? Well, let's see you prove it then. What's the hypothesis? Oh, I don't know about that bit. I've just got the magic word of experiment. Let's have a look at this guy and what he says about the Sagnac experiment. But it's not really an experiment, even though it's in bold capitalised type on screen. I'm now going to call it an observation. So we have very literally observation with explanation being used as proof. It's an absolute outrage. If anybody cuts me off again, I'm going to start kicking people because I am furious about this, if I'm honest. I've listened to your opinions on it, and the fact remains we have in our midst, in Flat Earth, practitioners of pseudoscience. They haven't got the vaguest clue how to formulate a hypothesis and ask me on the fly if it's acceptable to substitute the independent variable for the dependent variable. Well, if I'm not going to call the gyro the dependent variable, would it be okay, Nathan, if we call the star rotation the dependent variable? Why am I the person who's pointing out that this is pseudoscience, the one being asked how to formulate the hypothesis, when the experiment is a hypothesis test? So these pretender clown muppets are, in my view, no better than the pseudoscience pretender wiki parroting clowns who come on here and tell us Cavendish is science. Well, what's the IV and DV relationship? Oh, well, I don't know. I'll have a look. Oh, well, we've got more than one independent variable. We've got lots of them. Yeah, that's the kind of crap we get. From Bob, well, is it the star rotation or is it the gyro? Maybe you can tell me how we can make this experiment scientific. What the hell? You don't start with an experiment and then try and make it scientific. You start with the observation of a bloody phenomena, and then you try and explain what's causing it. If you're going to use scientific vernacular, not decide that you've got an experiment on your hands and then work backwards. That's what Globebusters are doing. And then going, oh, well, no, we'll just call it an observation then. So what? Observation and declaration? How fucking dare you, Bob, you pretender clown muppet. You think you can observe something and then declare that we've got ether? How dare you, pretender clown, pseudoscience, pretender clown, wiki parroting muppet. You've got no science and no clue how to even formulate a hypothesis, yet you're telling your audience that you've done experiments. Well, good for you. Net result of your fuckwittery is that you've got the entire ball community claiming you've proven the bloody earth spins with science. And you want to defend to me that you can continue to assert this garbage. So that's the bit that I would have done if I hadn't dropped on Globebusters in front of about 1,000 live viewers instead of my pittance of 322 people watching. Wow, Jesus!
We
Choke
love you,
on my
Nathan.
own
We
words.
love you.
It's
We
not
love you, buddy.
not a big surprise there.
That was the greatest reaction. Oh shit!
That's the reason why I keep
That was
following Flat Earth. It's so good.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of people watching. But yeah, I didn't
Drama.
want to
The
spout
drama.
my vitriol at Bob like I've just done. He's not here to react. And had I done it live on air, full-blown row. Now I can take a few seconds, calm myself down, get my shit back together, stop swearing, and say, I just don't want us flat earthers to also be pseudoscience pretender clown muppets. And that's what I'm dealing with on Globebusters at the moment. And it's an outrage. Don't just watch something and declare what's happening. That's total garbage. Shout out to Eagle Plane and
I saw a huge opportunity for the show.
Shout out to Eagle Plane and Super Chat and James Richard for the Super Chat. Thank you very much indeed. You can't join because I know there's a gap on the panel if you want to join, James.
Erwin, can I jump in real quick? I've been listening. I wanted to say something. I actually saw a huge opportunity here because I saw the potential for the conversation to go in a certain direction. And even Nathan was starting to pick up, he started to go after it, but it did get derailed. Like, the gyroscope, the Sagnac effect is a phenomenon. Now, it is created by an apparatus, but then you could still apply the scientific method to that, whatever you're seeing. And then even the terminology I started to change, I noticed, and showing that the gyroscope is actually a measuring device instead of it being some kind of thing. And I could see where if it would have gone there, because Nathan was trying to get them to recognize how they're defining words and how they're using words, and it wouldn't go there. But I could also see the potential if everybody would have started getting on the same page, it could have been a very productive conversation. And that's the thing I was seeing. I was sad when Nathan left. I was like, great, if it could have gone a little bit better, if the temperatures could have gone down just a little bit, and we just started to address the terminology a little bit better, it would have been a great conversation, I think, and it would have ended at a good end. But it never went there, and that's the sad thing that saddens me about it. And anyway, that's the only thing I was going to say. But I think it could have gone somewhere really well if started focusing on the terminology, and then of course Bob obfuscated the, you're nitpicking or you're, semantic over words. I'm going like, this is the point. This is what Nathan's saying. This is the point. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
How many definitions are there for experiment out there? I mean, of science in the scientific content, obviously I can agree with the hypothesis test. But when people are talking about experiments, there is like a test done in order to learn something or discover if something works or is true. Sometimes it doesn't have to do anything with science, right? So that's why they got pissed off, I think, because they wanted to present their case. They wanted to present the stuff with the gyroscope, but Nathan wanted to talk about the specific terms of science. So yeah, I kind of can understand them in a certain way.
Shout out to the Mind of God, Silver, Umbrella, and Colin for the super chats. Really appreciate your support. Yeah, that's true, Zinda. However, scientific method is useful because it's empirical. So again, if you're to assert that you are performing science and use terminology in that context, like experiment, then I would expect an adherence to the method because that's what's being detailed. Now you can say, well, let's just slightly recontextualize it then. Well, go ahead. I'll still point out that you're using scientific terminology in a scientific context whilst declaring that science proves the ether and that you've got an experiment that does so. That's pretty clear in its context. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, that's kind of clear.
And,
right.
So what I will do then, I just needed the agreement because what I do then is take a giant steaming dump on the pseudoscience pretender muppet that's parroting that shit, which is precisely what it is. Unfortunately, that offended Bob. He didn't like it. His ego very much got in the way, and he would rather be held up as a poster child of proving Earth turn than admit that he's wrong.
But how do you how do you make a cause and effect relationship between the sky turning and what is causing
I
it, right?
couldn't give
It is
a crap.
impossible.
I don't care. I'm not making those assertions now, am I? Bob is making those assertions. That's my point.
So
I think you have to answer that question properly, Zinder. You have to go through the process and apply it like a baller. So you observe the phenomena. We see stars moving. Okay. So what's the cause of the stars moving? I think that it might be Earth turn. Okay. So what are you going to do to manipulate Earth turn to prove that it is the effect that we see? I'm going to manipulate Earth turn. So then, how are you going to do that unless you're God?
yeah,
Do we have a problem?
I'm trying to look at it more from a flat Earth's perspective. How
Right,
do
from
you
a flat earther's perspective,
it's not moving.
you
We're
won't
not
no
spinning. That's our
no
perspective.
yeah,
but
we
the
look up and see
sky-
the stars
the
moving
sky
and say
is
stars
turning.
moving.
The sky is turning, isn't it?
Zinder, we look up and see the stars moving and we say stars moving. End of sentence.
Well, if you want to find out why they move, then the scientific
Then you have to
method
make the
is
stars.
Find the cause first. Good luck
Then
with
you have
that.
to prove that the cause is star movement, and you have to manipulate that movement of stars by being even better than God.
Right.
Yeah, so the scientific method can't be applied in order
Correct.
to find
Well
out.
done. That's the point, Zinder. Well done.
Cannot be applied to things that we cannot
So when the whole body of science proves something, Zinder,
No,
in this issue, doesn't prove anything, does it? Because we know that we can't manipulate Earth turn.
So what does that mean, Zenda? That
It means the whole body of science doesn't prove this point. Which
yeah, but what it
everyone
means,
thinks that
Anthony,
it
as
does.
well, Zinda. So if it's not science, then what is it? What are you using to determine this information?
Let me just finish my point before. So they on Globebusters had an impossible challenge they had to complete in order to go on with their point, right?
No,
so
they don't have an
what could
impossible
they?
challenge.
What
Hold on,
could
let
they have
Zinder get to the
done?
end. Just let Zinder get to the end.
It was an impossible challenge to complete those steps. So in order to avoid it, either they could just have avoided talking about experiment and science completely, right? So they wouldn't get in conflict with Nathan, or they just could have gone on and how they did and ignored what Nathan said. So they decided to go on, and at the end, Nathan didn't like it very much. So,
But was Nathan wrong though, Zinda? That's the question.
in those strict terminologies, it was right. About the definition.
Well, isn't that what we're trying to stick to?
So, all we're interested in, this is not a show, it's not a pantomime. I know you like the entertainment side of it, but we're
I
trying
really like it,
yeah, we're trying to find the truth. That's it. So Nathan's questions are very straightforward, and as you just said, strictly speaking, he is correct. No?
Yeah, but they couldn't give an answer that would satisfy the scientific method because it was impossible in
Because
those
it
terms,
wasn't an
right?
experiment, right?
Right.
Zinder?
That's the point. So when they invoke scientific terminology, it becomes a magic word that means I've proven something here. Listen, I've got this word that says proof. Which word would that be? Oh, experiment. Why? Well, because experiments are hypothesis tests, especially when you're talking about sciencing the shit out of stuff and science proving ether turn, or in the case of globe earthers, oh, well, this is science proving earth turn. Well, no.
We have a body of science, Zinda. What is this body of science? Science. This is a very important word. You can't just throw around the word science and think we're not going to question you on it. You see?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the body of science is. I mean, I hear it getting thrown around a lot of times, but I personally don't really care about the scientific method.
Yeah,
because,
it's thrown around by ballers.
The scientific method is touted as being the proof that we live on a spinning ball, but when we ask for the proof, it doesn't appear to be that strong.
Well,
I wonder
just
though,
a couple of things, Zinder.
do they really, or do they just use science as a beautiful word?
Zinda, think about it. Neil deGrasse says we are against science. Why do you think we're so angry? We are against science. We're the religious ones when we're trying to find the truth. When you have people like that, Zinda, saying that we're against science, we're an attack on science, we're an attack on education, you're going to see a backlash similar to this.
Well, what Neil deGrasse Tyson says isn't of much importance. It's just a guy, and
Really?
But when it suits, it's important, though,
Hold
doesn't
on.
it?
What
I
he
never
says.
cite him.
Hold on.
I
Science
don't
is
even
right
listen
whether you
to
like
him.
it or not, Zinder.
Yes,
Science
very.
is right whether you like it or not. That's what Neil deGrasse Tyson's got to say. And what type of scientist is he? Well, he's an astrophysicist. So, can an astrophysicist adhere to the scientific method when using this magical
go
word
away.
that says proof? Well, no. He can only observe phenomena and then come up with a just so story. So, he is a practitioner of pseudoscience, but he invokes this magic word the same as Globebusters do. He's performed experiments. They all perform experiments, don't they? They're scientists. Well, what is an experiment? Well, it's a hypothesis test to establish the IVDV relationship. That's what it is. That's the method of science. So if you're a scientist, and science is right whether you like it or not, and you've performed an experiment, and that experiment you've been taught at school is proof, because what's an experiment? The expression of a hypothesis, that's what. But no, they've just lied. That's where the trick, the switcheroo comes in. They're not performing a hypothesis test where they say experiment. They've deviated away from that empirical method. Well, why would you want to deviate away from an empirical method but still use the terminology? Because then suddenly what I say about what I see is proof. Well, bollocks. The empirical method is proof. If you want to prove it, put it through the empirical method. Oh, well, we've evolved beyond this empirical method. Now it's just what I say about what I see. Sod that. No. If you want to invoke science and make people at a deep-seated level think you mean you've proved something, well, then I'm going to hold you to task on it and say, well, let's see your IVDV hypothesis prediction, your scientific prediction, and let's see the systematic experimentation that validated that cause of that effect. And if you can't, I'll say this is pseudoscience. You've said it was an experiment. It's not. And if you don't like that, you'll get the reaction I get from most people when I do this to them. Globe side and flat earth side, I've had it from both of them. They don't like it because they want what they say to mean proof. They want to use this magic word when they use a gadget and say, we don't actually know what the effect is, but there's definitely something to be inquired here about this man-made gadget. It's like, well, shouldn't what you're observing be the first step? You don't even know what you're observing. You've just got some interesting anomaly on a gadget. Well, who gives a flying fuck? I don't care. I'm interested in the natural world. Isn't that what this bloody discussion's about? The world we live in? Yeah? Well, that's science. Exclusively interested in the physical and natural world. That's what I'm interested in here. Flat Earth debate. I'm interested in the physical and natural world. So science is definitely on my side here. So when pretender clowns start parroting that they've got experiments and they haven't, I'm going to be the first on that. I'm going to be all over it like flies on shit, saying, no, this isn't an experiment. And if you assert it, you'll go down a path that leads you to the end result being somebody on the ball side saying, well done for proving my Earth spins with science. So suddenly that magic word's being used against us. Why? Why am I having people in the comments tell me that science proves Earth turn? Oh, right, because we've got pretender clowns in our midst, haven't we? We've got fraudsters that claim science when they haven't really got science. That's why my comment's full of people thinking that they've got scientific proof of Earth spin. Why have I got these muppets telling me that science has proven Earth spin? Because Bob doesn't understand what science is. That's why. And would you rather listen to me point that out or go, no, actually, this is valid. I'll slightly jig the terminology around and still assert that what I say is proof of something. No, empirical proof comes from the method of science, what you're trying to assert, and don't have.
Zinda, you still here?
Yep, I'm here.
So you said, okay, this experiment is not science. So two questions. What is it if it's not science? And if we can't use this method, what do we use? Where does that leave us? What do we do? How do we find out things?
By, I don't know, by doing it like everybody did before, like finding out things doesn't have to imply the scientific method, right?
I know.
So,
I'm asking you how. No, first of all, if Bob, you said Bob didn't do science, that's not science. I'm asking you, what is it? How can we describe what Bob did? And then I want you to tell me, if you can, well, how do we find out things? Where does that leave us if it's not science?
Well, he measured something,
Mhm.
and then if you can't apply the scientific method to it, that restrict thing that Nathan has, I think, from Quantum Eraser, then you are going to have to find out some in a different way, right?
How?
So,
Where does that leave us?
Deduction-based reasoning. It's the
well,
only thing you got.
then you have to build up on your previous knowledge about stuff, and you have to exclude the impossible things, and then you draw a conclusion from it. And most people drew the conclusion that it was Earth turn, and then Globebuster drew the conclusion that it was the ether. At the end, it's your opinion, and you can, I don't know, you can come to your own conclusion. I don't care.
I see. So the method that you want to put it through leads us to the point where we can decide whatever the hell we like is the cause of it at the end of it. If you want it to be Earth turn on one day, you can call it that. If you want it to be the ether rotation on a different day, you can call it that. You don't really come to any empirical result at the end of this method then, Zinder?
No, you won't.
Oh, well, that's fucking useless then, isn't it, you stupid twat? Why the hell would we do that then? That's what Bob's doing, and at the end we've got nothing but shite to show for it, and his head being held up as some sort of arbiter of scientific proof, even though, as you've just rightly pointed out, it proves precisely nothing. You can just assert whatever you like at the end of that method. Oh, well, wouldn't it be useful to have a method that proves things empirically then, Zinder? Oh, there is one! That's useful. What's that method called again? Oh, the scientific method. So let's ignore that method and just discount things until we come to a conclusion we can assert. And if someone else has got a different conclusion, we'll just say they're wrong and we're right and have a little argument about it. Forget about the empirical method. Nah, that's dusty old rubbish. Nah, we'll just use the magic of the words that it implies when we talk about that method, when we just assert that what we say, given the deductions that we've made, because we're smart, aren't we? And we can deduce all of it. So therefore my end conclusion is right. What's that? Your conclusion is that it's not star rotation, it's Earth turn. Well, you're wrong. Well, no, what do you mean I'm not? Well, you are wrong. Well, that's a useful method. Or garbage that proves nothing. Unlike the scientific method.
Did you even hear the question that was asked? He asked
said,
if you can't use the scientific method.
Yeah, if you can't use the scientific method, you'll use the method of discounting things one at a time and then come to a conclusion at the end of it, like they have done. I listened to every word you said, and then pointed out that that method's shit.
No, the method is fucking useful because you can program stuff, you can increase technology, you can research in medicine. And
listen,
at the end,
listen.
if you get I'm speaking, I'm talking, Anthony, I'm talking. And at the end,
I know, but you're talking shite. Just
no,
listen.
I'm not.
Listen.
At the end, if you get as a result a product that works and is better than those before, this method is completely all right.
Right, Zinder, listen, please.
It isn't the scientific method.
Let him finish. He's making a good point.
It isn't.
Right, Zinder,
it may not be the scientific method.
Trial and error
if it
technology.
works better
What
than
Zinder's
before-
detailing is trial and error for technology. That's what you're detailing.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
great method for improving our society, to improve technology.
What, trial and error? So at the end of the process, it might fail completely. But that's okay, because we can try again. Oh, wouldn't it be useful to have an empirical method? No, my bad. Let's just go to trial and error.
You know, the cool thing about the scientific method is it's the bottom line and it works. But how much can any of us actually prove with it? Concerning the interests that we have about the world, okay? Look, the whole angle that Nathan is giving it with the scientific method, it works because the ballers falsely claim they have their stuff backed by science. And that's why he should be doing what he does, and he does it so gloriously. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't simultaneously just try to figure out how this freaking world works. Okay? And you can't always use the scientific method because we're dealing with elements that cannot be varied by us. But should we then just completely abandon it?
Yes.
No. Maybe
Yes,
Bob
Arwin.
should definitely be more careful in his wording, okay? It's because it's becoming an issue.
Arwin, you should
But-
abandon it. Otherwise, you will have assumption upon assumption. You have to stop there. This is the problem with man. Man has to know. They have this urge to find out. Some people, if they don't know, they don't know. They accept it. You're saying, oh, should we abandon it because we can't use... Well, yeah. What else are you supposed to do? Guess your way through the answer? So this vacuum next to gas pressure, are you going to guess that or use science? Or just say, I don't know?
You're going to work your way through. And again, the scientific method is the bottom line. But until you get there, if ever, it's still good to try and figure out what the freaking hell is going on.
Arwin,
or you're never going to find out anything.
Yeah, but Arwin, figuring out where we are is different than trying to disprove the lie that we've been told.
Right, but it's two separate things. We can't just only focus on trying to dispel the scientism bullshit.
Yeah, but what do we do on this show?
We also want to find out what it is.
Sorry, guys, just want to add this one point. It's not two separate things. That's the problem. So the way we've been deceived is through the hijacking of the scientific terminology to mean proof when I say something. Now, it's not two separate things when we do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, but it's only when we claim science, the official science, when we go wrong in the baller way. That's the problem. It's a cultural problem. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't be able to try to reverse engineer what is going on somehow.
That was exactly my point. That was the reason I went on Globebusters, Arwin. That's exactly what I was trying to communicate to them and the audience. Precisely that.
Right. So I agree with you, but still, I think Bob is doing really interesting reasoning work. He's trying to deduce what's going on. And I do respect him for that. What I don't respect him for is his sloppy use of words. And you hammered him for that.
Which is what has gotten him into the problem right now of people claiming that he has proven rotation of the Earth due to a scientific experiment. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's a joke. It's a reverse world joke on us.
To us, it's a joke.
And it's a joke on them.
To the people who are taking it serious, it's not a joke.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
that's why Nathan is taking it seriously.
The title and don't actually look into it. They will be fooled. But anyone that looks slightly farther will figure out that it's just a joke by itself.
Well, that's why Nathan has to take it seriously, man.
That's James Richard for the super chat. Really appreciate your support. Thank you very much indeed. Bob is using the same tactics the deception was created by. That's all Nathan is trying to tell him. Precisely. If we fall victim of the same thing, we're no better than they, and they have deceived us into look at what's in the sky, come up with an explanation, call it science, and everyone understands that it's been proven. That's what they do. So if we do the same thing and start calling experiments proof of something when they haven't adhered to that method, they're just pseudoscience. And we are trying to be better than the deceivers that have deceived us. Not use their tactics. And I see this as exactly that. Not because Bob's a bastard, not because he's a bad guy, but because every last one of us, including myself, has been indoctrinated in the same way. Show them a method that proves things, then in the same classroom, with the same heading, science, over the door, tell them about the molten iron core. Tell them about things that aren't science or proven in any way. And then suddenly you've got a magic word from then on in. Just say science when you mean you've done a case study. Just say science when you've actually performed a measurement. Just say science when you've mixed two things together. And people think you've proven something. Why? You've been told it proves things. What proves things? Science proves things. So if I say science, I've proven things. Oh, there's the switcheroo. That's the magic trick. And that's what Bob and the Globebusters team are doing when they cite experiments. They're not experiments.
Using the word science in that way is a false invocation. If he'd only had left the word science out, then he could even call it an experiment, just not a scientific experiment.
Hold on, Spurs. Kosho, did you want to pipe up?
Yeah, well, I had a question just because I was listening for a little bit, and I was I was thinking about it, and so please don't take this as an assertion, because I'm really curious and I want to ask if he did discover something, like he got some kind of movement, or where he like perceives its rotation, and obviously it wouldn't be right for him to make a claim on what it is. You know, I think someone said stars spinning or something like that. Wouldn't it be reasonable that the next step would be to take this as an observation? You call this an observation, and then to come up with a follow-up experiment to try and see what that was that he actually measured. You know, he make predictions and try to isolate it so that he didn't, you know, just draw a false conclusion. But at the same time, instead of just dropping this where it's at or leaving it as a, you know, null conclusion, he could use it to, you know, further an actual experiment, perhaps.
Well, okay, so you're saying he could take what he has discovered, in inverted commas, and go forward. Essentially, that's your point, right?
Well, yeah, but not necessarily really just out of curiosity to figure out what it is that he measured. You know what I mean? Just to have that be his question.
Well, you're trying to establish things in the physical and natural world. The phenomena that you observe in the physical and natural world. Does this fall into that category? Are we observing a phenomena in the physical and natural world? Has he discovered a phenomena in the physical and natural world? Or has he created a phenomena in a man-made device?
That would be, yeah. Well, that would be dependent on if the device was malfunctioning or if it was working properly. If it was working properly, then it was detecting something, it was measuring something. And so you have to get to the bottom of what that is.
I think a phenomenon, I mean, and try to or take the scientific method to try to figure out the cause of it. I think in a way that's kind of how our technology is developed in some ways, because we see, well, if we put these two things together, this thing occurs, and we can, if we apply this principle and see if we can work those together. I think there's a combination of trying to, you know, we discover something, we see something, and then we say, oh, well, if we interact these things
are normally a part of this, but I don't think it has to be a necessarily a bad thing. You just use it to, you know, like you guys said, like you're here to discover the truth. Let's figure out whatever that is that he detected. It could be something that nobody expected. It could be something that we already predicted. So it's
Kosha, what do you think what Bob did was science?
I was asking around last night. I don't know if you heard me. I actually don't know many details behind it. Like, I don't think he's released anything, and so I wouldn't.
I'm saying, do you think this gyro is science?
Like I said, I wouldn't be able to make that claim without knowing what he's how he's presenting it or what he did to come up with.
No, in general, the ring laser gyro.
What he's doing.
What is a ring laser gyro? What does it do?
Yeah, I know what he's using, but I don't see how he's presenting it. I don't see what he's put forth. And I was asking people who actually did it, and they said it was a different person as well. So I don't even know if he had much.
All I'm trying to find out, if it's not science, as Zinda said, what is it? What has he done? What do you call it?
As little as him playing with a toy, or it could actually be an experiment. It just depends on what he's done and how
he's said the word experiment, and I think this was the problem there.
No, it's only when put into the context of science that using the word experiment becomes a problem, because experiment is just a try. You try something out. If you're going to put it in the context of science, then suddenly, yeah, the scientific method has to be applied.
Let me clear that up. So we're not talking about teenagers experimenting with drugs, are we? We're talking about people who are trying to claim they're proving what the world is. So this is definitely about the physical and natural world. These things that are being presented are claimed to be proof about where we live, what's in the sky, what the ground's doing. We're definitely talking about science here. The context is science. If we're talking about the physical and natural world, we're not talking about a kid experimenting with his motorcycle on jumps, are we? So the context is the world we live in, isn't it?
So again, Kosha, if Bob is not doing science, what is it?
Well, Nathan's just said
he's just experimenting with trying to figure it out from a more distant approach.
So
it's like Legos,
I guess,
trying to figure out logical deduction.
Figure out what? Hold on, figure out what?
Am I fucking heard in this room or not?
to
Can I be
try and
unmuted,
figure
please?
out some system for what's going on, or like find a way through to
Well-
a potential eventual true scientific method approach that is even possible.
My context to my question, we will get to you, Hellboy, and we can hear you. So my question
great.
was contextualized about what's actually being observed.
Of the
The what, sorry?
laser gyroscope, right?
You tell me, what the hell are we actually looking at?
Well, that's what he's trying to figure out.
Oh, so we're already at the experiment stage. The experiment being the end of the scientific method, when you validate your presumed cause and effect. But we're actually trying to figure out what the hell we're looking at when we do the experiment. So we haven't got the vaguest clue what we're doing. We're basically just pissing around with toys.
Nathan. So you don't have a clue at what you're looking at, right? That's what you're trying to tell me.
I'm asking the panel, what's being looked at?
You're asking the panel, right?
What's being looked at? What's
Especially
being
you're asking me,
observed?
right?
Well, no,
'Cause
I
I'm part of
wasn't
the panel,
specifically
right?
asking you. No, I was asking the
So
panel.
you're
what's
asking
being
me.
observed.
You're asking me what you're looking at.
Not
right?
what I looked at. I haven't looked at anything.
Okay. So what was your question again?
Try and listen before coming out with a load of verbal diarrhea. What is being observed? The reason for the question is that's step one in the method if you want to prove something empirically.
Okay, step
Yeah,
one in the
I
method
haven't finished.
is
Shut up.
observation.
Why are you still talking when I haven't finished my sentence?
Okay, continue, please.
You don't need to give me permission to continue, Hellboy. Thank you very much.
Okay,
I
no
will
problem.
continue.
Go ahead, please.
No, as I just said, you don't need to give me permission. This is
Okay,
my show.
please go ahead, man.
No,
Shit.
no, you don't have to
The
beg
fuck
for
am I
me
gonna
to
say?
carry on either. You know, I'll just keep pointing out that I'll do what I like. And you're talking over me before I get to my point. So,
All right, just go ahead, dude.
step one is observe a phenomena. So you're trying to answer what's causing that phenomena. The first step is to actually observe something bloody happening. Not first step, have an experiment and try and figure out what's going on in the experiment.
All
That's
right.
nonsense.
So when you say experiment, what do you mean by experiment?
A hypothesis test in the context of science.
Okay. Where did you get that definition from?
Where did I get the definition of what?
Of science, of experimentation from.
That's a good
I
question.
want to.
don't know.
I want to
Don't know the answer.
understand if
I don't
when
know the
you say
answer.
you're doing this as an experimental point of view, if you're actually doing a real scientific experiment, or if you're not.
Nathan, do me a favour, please. Just present my screen.
Sure.
So to answer your question, sir, you asked where did you get the definition from? There are many places to get the definition from, but a good place to start for me is pseudoscience, which defines the term of a collection of beliefs or practices mistakenly regarded as being based on scientific method.
And where did you get that definition from?
I just typed in pseudoscience.
Yeah, but
Okay.
be
So
honest,
then obviously that's not even worth talking about because it's pseudoscience.
Yeah, it is. Because it's contrasting with
Why are we talking about
pseudoscience.
pseudoscience? We are scientific people in this room right now discussing a very important matter, which is flat Earth.
Right, no, actually, we're talking about the scientific method and how it's been hijacked by science by being presented as science when it's actually pseudoscience.
I think he's asking plainly what is science.
What
The opposite
is
of pseudoscience.
the definition of science, please?
It's the opposite of pseudoscience. Would you like me to get me a
and
definition?
what's a
Science is a method.
Okay, I don't want to hear, like, honestly, bro, seriously, don't tell me the definition of something the opposite of something for what it actually is. Tell me the definition of what it is.
Science is a
Okay,
method.
so a method of procedure that has characterized natural science, not man-made science, natural science since the 17th century, consisting in systematic observation, measurement, and experiment. The formulation, testing, the formulation.
Right, if you interrupt
It's
him
on
again,
screen.
Hellboy, I'm going to kick you the fuck out, right? You are so rude. You haven't got the
Okay, I'm
vaguest
sorry,
idea
I'm
what
sorry,
these
I'm sorry.
things
I
are.
can be
Now
very
you're
nice
talking
with
over me, asshole, so that's your last chance. Piss off. You're just a wanker, so sod off. Anthony will now explain the answer to your question that you couldn't shut the fuck up for 2 or 3 minutes to actually listen.
So I gave the definition of pseudoscience and it contrasted with the scientific method, and the scientific method, by simple definition, is a method of procedure that has characterized natural science since the 17th century, consisting in systematic observation, measurement, and experiment, and the formula, keyword, and the formulation, testing, and modification of hypothesis. That's basically what is science. It's not just making an observation or describing what you see or projecting your falsities onto other people because we're so-called science deniers. We're actually trying to put the science back into science, and it's obvious that nobody wants it in there because in science we can't manipulate the cause for what is the sunset. We can't manipulate the Earth rotation, but they need it to be scientific, and that was my point against Zinder before when he started bullshitting his way through his shite. You can't prove in science the things that you guys claim is proven to be science. In other words, Earth spin, gravity. Can't prove all these things because we can't manipulate the cause. That's basically what we're trying to say.
What was I bullshitting? Where was I wrong?
I was trying to interrupt you and you spoke over and over and over, and I was interrupting you because you were talking shite. Your point against Nathan was, how was Bob going to be able to prove the point that he was trying to make? And our point is, he can't. That's the whole point. It's not
that was
science.
my point. That was my point.
Yeah, but you stated, how can Bob prove? And the answer is, he can't, because he can't manipulate the stars. So to prove what the stars are doing, you've got to prove what you believe is your presumed cause, i.e. either Earth spin or star rotation. And you can do neither. So in science, you can't prove whichever one you believe you think you're looking at. So in science, you can't do it. You have to do it outside of science. It's pseudoscience. It's not actually science. That's the point that Nathan was trying to get across. And you're saying, well, how can Bob prove it? He can't. That's the point, Zinder.
I said he got upset because he couldn't move on because he couldn't prove it with the method.
Correct. But that's
Nathan's frustrating, isn't it, when you can't have the answers?
That was Nathan's point. He couldn't move on because he got frustrated because it wasn't science.
And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in on Nathan Oakley 1980. If you're watching this on Nathan Oakley channel, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe. Massive thanks to all who hit the super chat. Check out nathanoakley.com to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate Forum. I've been Nathan Oakley and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!